like scary movies?
I'm getting ready to watch a video.
You making popcorn? What's your favorite?
I don't know.
You have to have a favorite. Talk to me. Talk to me.
Hi, everybody. I'm George, and welcome to another episode of the Best Little Horror House in Philly, the show where we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guest, at least. And today's guest is a comedian who you might have heard as part of the What a Time to Be Alive podcast. Please welcome Patrick Monahan. How's it going, buddy?
Hello. How are you?
Doing really well. Very excited to talk about this one. But before we get into today's pick, why don't you just tell us a little bit about your history with horror in general?
I flit in and out. I go on little kind of, jags, I think, where I'll watch a bunch and then I'll take a break. And, I think like most people do with things like that. But
sure,
I think horror movies are in particular very compelling to people who, it seems like a lot of comedy people like horror as well. And it seems like it's because I think you can express what the whole movie kind of is in like one sentence. Like you just need like a good idea, like a good kind of, gimmick for the thing. And then it just kind of, flows from there. And also, I guess, fear reaction is sort of a cousin of laughter, right? It's like an involuntary thing. So you're kind of provoking a similar thing.
Surprise.
Yeah. So I think that's part of it too. I mean, but yeah, I've always liked, I will admit to being kind of a little bit of a chicken, I think probably. I don't love jump scares. I don't like feeling like I'm being punished. I don't really mind gore. I don't think like I haven't seen like Terrifier or those, which I hear are like, I don't know when I'm going to ever see them because I live with my fiance and I'm not sure that she would ever want to watch it. So it's, if she's out for the night or she's away or something, I will watch some other garbage. That probably won't be on my list, but the stuff that she doesn't want.
You're
to
not
watch.
Like finally a chance to watch
somebody gets sawed in half vertically or whatever, right? I've heard enough about it that. So, and so I will inevitably sort of look away from the screen or something, even in the theater, if I think something scary is going to happen. But I appreciate a well-crafted, and a genuinely scary thing, like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of what was good recently. Hereditary obviously would be a good example of just like, oh yeah, this is like its own like cool thing that's like,
Right, watershed moment.
We're actually going to watch The Exorcist after we record this. We're going to go out and get some food and then because Whitney's never seen that, so we are going to do that.
That's exciting.
Sort of
Big one.
Kicking off. Yeah. Well, yeah. She said it's the only movie her dad's ever actually been afraid of, which I think is fun. I would say that is, and I'm sure that's been talked about on here already. So that's why I went with a different sort of take on it, obviously, which we'll get into on sort of the prompt. But yeah, Exorcist is one of the few like legit like stays with you, at least for me, and you don't exactly. And I also went to Georgetown, so that's part of it for me too.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So like this, I'm wearing a hat of a bar that is like 50 paces from the Exorcist steps. It's like the bar that everyone goes to. That's or not everyone, but a lot of. It's the bar that St. Elmo's Fire was based on. It's called the Tombs. For people that are listening, obviously you can read. Right. But no, it's so it's all that lore is kind of all wrapped up. But it also functions. I had seen it before. I saw it in high school. Before I even had decided where I was going to college. But they showed it every Halloween. In like the big fancy lecture hall and stuff, and had costume contests. So that. But anyway, what I'm saying is, I appreciate it, but I also love the schlock too. That's the thing. There's we watched Annabelle the other day, which I hadn't seen, which is like we weren't really in the right. We weren't setting the mood. We were just kind of doing other stuff while it was on. So it was kind of But I love a movie where it's like there's like a hideous doll, and they're like, oh, it's so great. I can't wait to bring it home and put it in my like forget about the curse. Just like, why do you want that in your house? Stuff like that. And then we're about to dip into I think watching a lot of horror stuff for the next month.
Tis the season.
Exactly.
Tis the season.
Exactly.
And definitely, I mean, The Exorcist. What is there to say about it really at this point? It has such a longevity for a reason. It's so scary, not just from like a supernatural perspective, but I think that part of what it does so well is it really captures the fear of like something is wrong and medicine is not doing a good job of figuring out what the problem is.
Yeah.
Like there's so much time that they spend going to doctors and going to traditional medicine and being like, tell me, I want you to be the one to provide the answer. And the fact that they can't is what makes it so frightening to non-believers in demons and ghosts.
Yeah,
so.
I mean, she gets the spinal tap, which I did not know what that really entailed, until then. It's like, oh, that's pretty messed up. Yeah, I mean, not to harp on this movie because we're not talking about this movie, but like when Karras hears Father Merrick collapse, and then he has to decide whether he's going to go back up into the room when he'd already kind of excused himself. That is like the most like, oh no. Like I remember being in the theater watching it like the first time I saw it, and just like, because you're popular culture, it's like a Godfather level thing where if you have, if you're a younger person and you watch it, you're like, oh, that's what that's from. Oh, that's what that's from. Oh, that's what that's from. And so it's very easy to kind of dismiss it as, oh yeah, throwing up pea soup on everybody. Ha ha ha. It's like, oh no, this is like really messed up and hard to watch. And yeah, him having to go up those stairs and open that door, you're just like, oh, you don't have to do that, man. You can just,
just turn around. Turn around and leave.
There's no, they're not going to call the cops and make you go in there,
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's good. This is a good way to kind of kick off unofficially getting back into the season. So I'm
definitely. So you mentioned a couple of supernatural movies in there. Do you have a favorite subgenre within more traditional horror that sort of is your go-to in a moment where you are looking for it?
I don't know. I don't think I have. I don't think I would characterize it as a particular subgenre. I mean, the one that I also thought about doing, but I think someone else had done it already, so I didn't do it. Is have you seen? I assume you've seen Hell House LLC, which is like the
hasn't been done yet for the show.
Okay.
I have seen it, but
that's one that I brought up for another horror podcast I did actually a few years ago now. But that one to me is interesting because it was one of those ones that was like way deep in the recommendations on Prime. For years and years, I would see it when you're kind of all the way at the end of the thing. And you're like, I'm not watching this movie. This title, there's no way this could be good.
Corny ass title.
But like, just like, no way. I'm not. And then you watch it, and it's like, oh, this is like actually really scary and very well done for what it is. And they made like apparently there's a new sequel coming. I think it's a Shudder exclusive coming in October. I assume that's not private knowledge. I don't know why it would be, but anyway.
Hell House, the subsidiaries.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, that's getting into subsidiaries and stuff like that. That's more about what we're going to be talking about here. That's that different kind of evil. No, it's I don't know. I like little. There are movies that I harp on like that. I think that's more what it is. And I'll just. I think if I know what I'm going into, is this actually scary? Is this just like a dumb schlock thing? Is this like, like The Nun, right? Like I'm definitely going to see The Nun 2, probably not in the theater, but like, that's exactly what I want to see. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Pope's Exorcist, right? I mean, obviously I love Russell Crowe.
Oh, a gem. Mamma Mia.
Maybe not strictly a horror movie in that way, but when you know what you're getting, there's nothing more satisfying. So
yeah, definitely. And as you said, we are sort of talking about subsidiaries and less traditional horror because today we're discussing a triumph of existential ennui and self-loathing in the workplace, Michael Clayton. A horror in many ways beyond just this, but just a gut punch of a movie. It's so great. Do you remember like seeing it for the first time? How did you come to this movie?
I went to law school. I am a licensed attorney and everything. I went to Fordham Law School, which is the same as Michael, actually. But yeah, it's not. I don't remember the first time I saw it. I didn't see it in the theater because it's not a title that jumps out at you, right? It's not like and it was during a period of it's like a George Clooney movie. Okay, whatever. You know what I mean? It was not like but it is obviously it's like one of my favorite movies. One that I would watch a million times, even though it's not. I wouldn't call it a comfort movie in the sense that it doesn't really provide comfort, but it does in the sense that it's very familiar, and I've seen in that way. Kind of like how other people have talked about this on other stuff. I think on Blank Check, but like Spotlight is like another movie that's like it's obviously the subject matter is horrifying, but it's like people like that are competent in doing their job and like working towards something and like succeeding in some way. There's something that's like very satisfying. Obviously, you don't want the people that are succeeding in this movie to succeed, but yeah, so I just it was kind of a slow burn for me. I think when I realized like how much I really appreciated it. I think I probably watched it after it got nominated for Oscar or something, or one of my friends told me about it. But it's just become something. I mean, the last few years we've on New Year's when we get home, you know, and obviously a couple of the last few years we didn't go out at all for New Year's, but that has been the first movie that we watch every year. Is we just throw on Michael Clayton, which is
that rocks. What better movie for turning over a new leaf, right?
What a fun and uplifting way to start the year, but but it works for some reason. So yeah, we'll keep it up, I'm sure.
Definitely. Yeah, I think the thesis for this episode can be sort of summed up by Joe Mandy, the great comedian, made a great lawn sign that looks like one of those "we believe love is love, science is real, etc." signs. But it says, "We believe the legal thriller Michael Clayton, starring George Clooney, Tilda Swinton, and Tom Wilkinson, is a vastly underrated cinematic masterpiece and easily one of the 5 best films of the 21st century." Of course, thriller is a subgenre of horror because a thrill is a small scare. We all know this. So pay no mind to the labeling there. It's just more specific.
Yeah, I mean, and legal thriller is a subset of thriller, obviously. And they don't really make these anymore because they don't make a lot of kinds of movies anymore because of the way that movies are funded and all that kind of stuff, it seems like. But yeah, this was like the Grishams and the Scott Turow type movies and all. There's a lot of... There's a proud history. This one's a little bit less popcorny, I guess, than the Pelican Brief or something. but it's it's part of the same. Or The Devil's Advocate would be maybe an even better example of
definitely.
But also that's also written by Tony Gilroy, which is so who has said everything that needs to be said about the legal profession between those two movies. So
this movie even starts like it has its roots in The Devil's Advocate because he was doing research for that movie, spent a lot of time just like walking around New York law firms, and he talked about being shocked by the space and personnel that it took behind the scenes. He said, "I was really struck by how unrepresented an actual law firm was on film. It's either like LA Law, or it's like The Firm, or it's like Devil's Advocate. They have that wood-paneled room. It's just that no one ever goes in there, and the real work is taking place in these huge backstage industrial areas with documents and people working. When you go to the law firm to shoot location at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's shocking. There's 3 or 4 lights on every floor and some poor person buried under paper." And he thought, this is kind of an untouched area. There's a lot of drama going on back here. Let me sort of file this away. And he did. I mean, Devil's Advocate came out late 90s, right? 99?
I want to say 97.
97? Yeah.
Yeah, 97.
So Tony had this percolating for quite a while.
Yeah, 10 years. Between the movies, at least.
This idea is rumbling around. He goes to Castle Rock Films, with whom he'd worked several times, so they had confidence in him, and he gave them this sketchy pitch. He said, "I want to make a movie about lawyers that doesn't go anywhere near a courtroom. It'll have a movie star part. I want to direct, and someone will die." And Martin Schaefer said, "Okay, we'll do that." Great. Done and done. So he has the green light, but it took a while to nail down, sort of because the concept is so rich. He was like, I came up with this great fixer, Michael Clayton, and now I don't know what to do with him because he could do 1,000 different things. It is a very compelling character. It's sort of a great archetype of this, like, guy who is so good at his job, but, like, wants a way out. Thief is another great example of this sort of thing. Mm-hmm. And, of course, Clooney just knocks it out of the park. So he spent 2 years writing it, and then it took another 6 years to actually get it off the ground. So he's already kind of exhausted by the time Soderbergh gets him in the room with Clooney. And part of the reason it took so long is because Tony was really committed to having him as the star. It was kind of funny. I listened to the commentary, and he was talking about, like, I was so desperate. I was like, it can even be a post-pass meeting. He just, like, wanted to hang out with Clooney. And who could blame him?
Yeah. Might get pranked, though. You got to be careful.
That's right. But he had everyone he knew harassing George just to get him in for a chat. He is really great in this. And I think that part of what Clooney does really interestingly and is very rare is he sort of occupies the space of movie star and serious character actor. You can take him seriously in both, but he has the appeal to be the face of a movie. I mean, literally, the poster is just his face.
The truth can be adjusted, right? Isn't that what it says? I think that's what and again, that's the kind of thing that you just kind of roll your eyes a little bit. You're like, what is this movie? Okay. But like, again, you're missing out if you don't actually watch it. So
yeah, it's the kind of thing where like going in, you're like, man, what the hell is this? And then afterwards you're like, yeah, the truth can be adjusted. So they have this 9-hour meeting. They talk about their fathers and movies from the 70s. including several that directly influenced this, like Clute, Network, The Parallax View. And Gilroy has also talked in interviews about this era being where his own obsession with movies began, thanks to the combo of, quote, muscular filmmaking with great subject matter, and ambiguity, complexity, and loose ends. That's been sort of ghettoized to the side now, to the Sundance film or the super indie film, where people are really hanging on for dear life because they don't have enough money to make their movies. They have the 20th choice of actor, and their crew's doing everything for the first time. But that era of balls out, tough, full stop, pro movie making that didn't have the chaos beaten out of it, there are so many movies that fall into that category. The Palooka films, Clute was a big influence, Point Break was a huge influence, all the Gordon Willis films, Sidney Lumet, Hal Ashby, Frank Perry, and Sidney Pollack. Sidney Pollack is, of course, in this movie, also quite good as Marty Bach, one of the name partners in this law firm. And you know, this sort of just convinced Clooney. And he said that having him on board with this 70s influence was like the ultimate bodyguard for doing it the way they wanted to. This included the look of the movie. They used actual 70s era Panavision lenses with a new coat and anamorphic film to let the framing and negative space be a part of the movie. It looks so good. There's a moment early on where Clayton is at the rich guy's house and he picks up the phone and you're like, I can't believe they made answering a phone look so slick and dramatic and like compelling just for him to be like, the police don't call, pick up. Just really great stuff. The other stars are, as mentioned in The Sign, Tilda Swinton as Karen Crowder and Tom Wilkinson as Arthur Edens. Tony was really pleased with the cast as a first-time director. He said it was a lot of low-maintenance actor, and they all did a great job with admittedly challenging material. You know, these are not the like sexiest roles for Tom Wilkinson and Tilda Swinton here,
to say the least. I mean, you know, this is also like obviously the dialogue is like among the things. I mean, there's a lot of great things in this movie, but like it's not a lot of it's not easy, I would imagine, to deliver. You know, it's kind of jargony. It doesn't really speak down to you, you know, or dumb it down. You know, a lot of the sort of, especially with Arthur, you know, any of the legal stuff. But I mean, also Karen does some of that as well. And it's, yeah, I mean, you fully believe all these people who obviously are all total, every actor in this movie is a total pro, but you believe them as these professionals in a way that it doesn't feel like they're kind of putting on a costume, you know, and Clooney, like you said, is sort of, you know, and it's interesting that, you know, because so many times in movies like this, you know, you'll see, and I say this out loud all the time, and it's probably like annoying to my fiance, but it's like, you know, well, it helps that you know, this person is the most attractive person anyone has ever seen, you know, in the world of the movie. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like the idea that, but with someone like, you know, with someone like Clooney, like with someone like Michael, yeah, him looking like that is just another thing that makes him good at the job, right? And being charming and like, you know, like it's just enough to kind of blow by somebody or get someone to kind of bend the rules, or, you know, they give him the hotel key card so he can go up and clean up before somebody gets, you know, or whatever, you know, whatever the hell it is, you know, and it makes it more believable in a weird way.
Definitely. If he wasn't as good looking as Clooney, that's a strike against him having that position, being able to function as effectively as he does. That's how he got to this point. Yeah. It's another tool in the toolbox.
Exactly. So it really is just fire. Everybody's firing on all cylinders, and the whole thing is just, yeah, it's wonderful. And they bring back Danny from Caddyshack out of nowhere as a true asshole, and who's phenomenal in that part. Just great stuff.
Definitely. Tilda Swinton as Karen Crowder, Tony talked about how she's a very sympathetic bad guy to him. He sort of describes her as lost. He said that she's very formal, she had to grind to get the job, and it means everything to her. And so that's part of why she's gripping to it so tightly. But when she's forced to improvise, she can't admit that she doesn't know the answer. And so everybody pays the price for this, basically.
Yeah, I mean, the first time we see her, I think she's doing the rehearsing what is going to be a softball interview. You know, it's clearly like a very sympathetic reporter, you know, asking these kind of, well, how do you know, work-life balance, you know, and you know, there's your balance, you know, and she has to do all these things, but and this is obviously all you find out later, like in the context of all these horrible things going on. So of course she's like stressed out about, you know, what's going, you know, she's putting a hit on somebody and all this stuff. Meanwhile, she's, you know, trying to do like for some kind of internal video magazine or something. I have no idea what the interview is even for. But yeah, I mean, you see, it's somebody who probably has nothing else going on in her life, and that's how you get to this kind of thing, unless you're somebody that has kind of connections or whatever. And she's totally beholden to Don Jeffries. It seems like, I mean, not that he doesn't, respect her, and not that he's not like tapping her to take over, but at the same time, like, like she has to deliver for him because she knows that, this whole thing is,
right. He took a chance on her,
right.
And he could easily pull that away.
Right. And she's not like a wheeler dealer type, you can, or any of that. And she's, she's there because she's competent in a very particular way. And frankly, because he's the chairman of the board, he's basically, or CEO rather, I guess. Or I guess maybe he's both. But in any event, he's sort of puppeteering her anyway. You know what I mean? Like he's still basically, general counsel, effectively, because she's going to go to him with anything, and he gets to, so because she took over from him, right? Right. Okay.
He handpicked her to take over.
Okay. Yeah. I want to make sure I remembered it right. But yeah, she's sweating, pitting out the shirt and stuff. It's a very kind of unflattering in a lot of ways performance, in both literally in terms of how she looks, and also just figuratively. It's like this is like this is somebody who's just covered in flop sweat at all times.
Right.
Kind of, you can see it, but also you can just kind of feel it. Mm-hmm. And somebody who should be like one of the masters of the universe, but is really just like, okay, well, now what do we do? And like, look, as the movie kind of sets out, like they are screwed if this thing gets out that Arthur is somehow melting down and deciding to kind of make clear. And it's bad enough that he had the deposition meltdown, but like the there's that one document that's going to destroy your whole case, and it's game over.
And he's giving it to him,
and he's doing it.
He's doing it. Yeah. On the other hand, we have Arthur, this man who so loathes his life and what he's doing that he has this mental breakdown, and that breakdown vocalizes all the fears that Michael himself has. He is the Jiminy Cricket of this movie, and unfortunately, he also pays the price here. And I think it's really interesting that all three of these people are in service to this beast that Arthur mentions at the beginning, but their reactions are the difference. Arthur wants to atone, Michael wants to escape, and Karen is eager to do its bidding. But then, by doing its bidding, she's left so hollow at the end of the movie that she literally can't even stand. She collapses on the floor. This beast, figurative beast, has taken everything that she has to offer, and cares not a whit for her.
Yeah. Is this man bothering you?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, it's, obviously Wilkinson is amazing, but it can't be overstated. Like, this was the only thing he did, basically, it sounds like, for the better part of a decade, this case, because these cases take forever and they grind through. And if you're, it's a class action.
Purposefully delayed
as
well.
Right. I mean, if you're the defendant, you and you have a lot of money to spend, you just try to grind everyone down, and you make everything take forever. You get, and the courts can be sympathetic to, bigger defendants and certainly, high priced lawyers who are able to kind of make, have resources to make arguments and do all kinds of filings and stuff that just have to be dealt with. And then the court's dockets are crowded anyway. So, you can see how it would take all that time. And, if you stop and think about it for a second, it's like, what side am I on here? Then that's, I guess, where you end up potentially. He's got no family. He's got, his daughter wants something to do with him, etc. He's in a way like kind of a mirror of, I'm sure this is not breaking new ground, but of Karen. He's got nothing else going on either.
Right. We also, as we sort of mentioned, the smaller performances are amazing in this too. We have Sidney Pollack as the partner of the firm, Marty Bach, Bill Raymond as the bookie, Robert Prescott and Terry Serpico as Mr. Vern and Mr. Iker. Even the one or two scene performances like Merritt Weaver as Anna and David Lansbury as Timmy. Just really all spectacular. Nobody here is letting other people carry the weight for him.
You got to give it up for O'Hare too at the beginning.
Definitely.
The guy was running. You take that. You take the lamps. Yeah, I there's nobody who sticks out really in this. I would say for sure. It's really sticks out in a negative way. I mean,
right?
Yes, I mean this has. Not that there are that many of them, but there are in the 90s and 2000s. There are a couple of the well-appointed room with a billiards table, Sidney Pollack telling you the way things are, scene, which
right.
It's this and Eyes Wide Shut, there, and it's very similar kind of, here's the way the world works, type thing. And that is just such a rich thing to be able to kind of experience. And I would imagine to act on the other side of too, because it's just like, I can't believe this guy's, I get to hear from this guy. Because obviously people that are of the age that Clooney, was and Tom Cruise was, they grew up on, if you're a fan of film, Sidney Pollack's stuff was part of the stuff that I'm sure got them into, like with Tony Gilroy, got them into movies in general. So
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. And I thought it was really interesting and kind of funny to have these multiple directors as actors in your movie. And, it's kind of interesting for them to be able to understand where Tony's coming from and sort of work with him a little more directly as a holistic actor, I guess. And Tony said they were greedy to regress, that whenever he got into a pinch due to it being his directorial debut, he'd be like, "Are you going to help out at all?" And they would just like shrug and be like, "Figure it out, not my job."
That's great. Yeah, I think that there's something about casting a director sometimes, and obviously Sidney Pollack also an actor, but like they know there's something about like his matter of factness is just so good, and he's so this is a big law firm, hundreds of lawyers, and he is a named partner, and I don't know if he's a founding partner or what, I don't know how old the firm is, but like Kenner Bach, he's Bach.
He's also the only one we see. He's
right.
The boots on the ground guy.
Well, yeah, and the way it worked, there could be, the other guys could be dead. Who knows? It could have been a merger or something like that from years before, or whatever it is. But I mean, he's clearly he's the managing partner now. He's clearly the dude, and yeah, I don't know. He in particular is like one. We caught a lucky break. We did, didn't we? That like just everything about his maneuvering where he like brings Michael into we caught a lucky break. You know what I mean? It's like, well,
he gets him to be the one to say it.
He said you caught a lucky break, not we. You know what I mean? Like I think he's outside of this, but you're trying to bring him in. I don't know. It's at the risk of gushing, you just want to call out every performance, and and I also just want to say the name Terry Serpico is like truly
amazing. So good. They should have just left it as that for his role here.
And he's in a ton of stuff. He's a guy you'll see just in random stuff. Down the line. He was in Flight Attendant. He played like it's sort of like a comic reliefy type role, and it was just like, oh man, that's like the other dude. From that's it's like because I don't remember if they say because I know Mr. Verne obviously, right, because they say his name but I don't remember if they say maybe the caddy says it or something, the guy at the golf course, but his name is Iker, but it's like, oh, that's the other guy with Mr. Verne, and he's the guy that you see kind of more, because I don't think I really. The other actor that plays Verne, I guess, who's it? Robert Prescott. He doesn't really. He's not in as much stuff. He's more in movies. He doesn't seem like he's really been in as many TV shows, I guess.
Right.
But yeah, and also obviously Serpico has a very memorable face. Like he's got a real look. So
yeah, he's got kind of like a Lundgren.
He's exactly
to him.
Right. He you would not be surprised to hear that he is a guy who will inject you with some kind of a fatal dose of heroin or whatever that stuff is. So
yeah. There was also a lot of praise in the commentary for James Newton Howard, who did the score. I also really like it. It's not overbearing at all, and it's honestly kind of sparse. But when it hits, it feels good.
Yes. Oh yeah. It is very sparse, but it's got that. There's that little like I don't know what the effect is. I don't know but that little noise is very. It feels very 70s Thriller too, right? Which is why
definitely.
I'm sure intentional. It's an homage to all that kind of stuff. But it's it's interesting. I looking up because I was like, what has Robert Prescott done? The guy who played Mr. Verne. He was like he was in Real Genius, and he was in Bachelor.
Oh, wow.
He was in Bachelor Party. He was like an 80s guy. And it's funny how many of these now guys have aged into these things where, we talked about Danny Noonan, obviously from Caddyshack, is in it as the asshole attorney, whose name I can't remember now. But also Don Jeffries was he was the White Shadow. So like these guys are all from these like funny, things in the past. And then you get old and your face sets in, and then you get to play guys like this, I guess. I guess that's how it works.
Yeah. Weathered by life.
What a business.
You've also got a bit of a family affair with this movie. Obviously, Tony Gilroy, the writer-director, and then you have John Gilroy, who's the editor of the movie, They talk in the commentary about the balance between Jon wanting to really underline everything, go big on emotions, while Tony was very restrained. And I think that the balance that they found is on screen in that, you know, you can kind of see these emotions bubbling, but it's never too, like, over the top. I think that it works really well to blend those two styles.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think it gets to the point. I think Tony's perspective in particular, you know, the reason that I sort of picked this is because it is this, like, the banality of, you know, the ugliness and horror behind all this, you know, because it is just like paperwork, right? It's not, you know, for the most part, obviously there's an assassin, you know, a murder, you know, for hire that goes on, but in general, like, most of what's been going on to get to this point is just, you know, it's all perfectly legal. It's just operating in the, you know, within the legal system, in the legal process. I'm sure they didn't file anything that would get them in trouble. You know, there's no ethical violations or anything like that. You know, it sounds like there may have been something suspicious that went on with the fire in the warehouse that destroyed a number of documents, but they still managed to keep this, the memo in question that sort of sets everything into motion is somehow saved. Everyone is very matter of fact. There's not a lot of moments of kind of, you know, the only people who are really freaking out are the sort of the clients, I guess, right? Because, you know, but the lawyers are all just this, they've seen this all a million times, you know?
Right. They're a little bit disassociated from
right.
it.
The guy, you know, I've been a client of Kenner Bach for how many years? You know, and the wife throws the glass finally when she snaps, you know, you have to fix this. You have to fix, you know, and Michael is not moved really at all by it. You know, obviously he's in his own world, but when Karen Crowder's freaking out too, same thing. You know, it's just kind of like, yep, well, look, we got him on his meds. He's had a rough time, or he's asleep. We're working on it. It's like, well, wake him up. It's like, it's not a good idea right now, you know.
Right.
It's a good bedside manner, you know, just for doing ugly stuff, I guess, right?
Yeah. The movie had a $21.5 million budget, made $93 million at the box office, and it also got much acclaim, 7 Oscar nominations, and the only one to get multiple acting nominations. This was, though, also the year of There Will Be Blood and No Country for Old Men, so it didn't get many wins that year, except for Tilda Swinton's supporting actress win for Karen, which I think is well-deserved. Again, we talked about how it's not a flattering performance and everything. I think that she really went for it with gusto. She deserved that win.
Yeah, I mean, she's great. You know, it's a rare role when she's not, you know, she sort of has, this legend is kind of built up around her where she plays these kind of weird characters and ethereal kind of, you know, this all, but I mean, she's just playing a lady who is in over her head a little bit, but also is trying to meet the moment and is willing to do horrible things. So
yeah.
Not, you know, I get what he means sympathetic. I think he means sympathetic in the sense that you can kind of see where she's coming from, but not sympathetic in the way that people colloquially use it. Like, I feel bad for, you know what I mean? Like, no,
right.
She's a monster. But there is a, you know, it's a relatable in the very abstract sense. It's relatable. Not that.
Yeah, she's pressed upon by her situation,
right.
and sort of who has not had to make a call that they maybe felt a little gross about at some point.
Sure.
So
you gotta download an encrypted package to it's our standard package to your computer.
It's pretty simple. Yeah, it's just a classic murder contract.
Yeah, whatever that. We're gonna send you an encrypted package. Yeah. I mean, you'd think you'd want to use a burner phone or something. I feel like I'd be a little bit more careful about this, but, you know.
Yeah.
It's all above board.
So let's get into the actual movie. I really like this audio-only open. Tom Wilkinson's Arthur pleading for a little understanding from our man Michael really sets up the mystery of who this guy is, that he, A, has this kind of power over him, and also, B, why Arthur is so manic. And he tells Michael about a sensation he had. They were about to be in a terrible traffic accident, and he feels overwhelmingly sticky. Is it amniotic fluid? Is this rebirth? No, it's shit. A patina of shit, because he hasn't come just out the front doors of their high-powered law firm. He's been shat from the asshole of an organism whose sole purpose is to excrete the ammunition that allows even larger and more powerful organisms to destroy humanity. Very potent, powerful monologue to really hook you in at the beginning.
Yeah, keeping it breezy up at the top.
This leads, along with a cart full of legal documents, into a room bustling with people, the fauna of this organism, law firm Kenner, Bach, and Layton. And they're settling a case that was pending litigation for 6 years already, one of many that they've dragged out, and one of the name partners, Bach, has only a very canned answer for a reporter who's nosing around. Where the fuck is Karen Crowder, he asks. Cut to Tilda Swinton hiding in the bathroom, shirt soaking through with sweat. Just such a funny introduction to that character. She's like just feeling it like, oh God, this is a nightmare.
Yeah. Yeah, either you don't have anything and you're on deadline. Either way, I wish you the best of luck. Yeah, it's quite a, and the all hands on deck going through millions of pages of documents, whatever's going on there, that stuff. I mean, a lot of that stuff is electronic now. I feel like you don't get as many. I mean, I'm sure there are cases where the only thing they have are, physical documents and stuff that's from years ago would probably be that way. That sort of scene with like a million people who are, 25 and they're ordering stuff on Seamless, staying up all night working, and sort of divorced from what's really going on. Their job is just to, you got to read all this stuff and you got to pick out the stuff that's important, and the sort of broader impact of it is left to the bigwigs and someone like Arthur, who then his brain breaks because of it, basically. So
Right.
probably for the best that not everyone's thinking about it, I guess, at least for them.
Yeah. Our introduction to Michael, however, happens at the backroom poker game. One of the players mentions that he remembered Michael wanting to open up a bar at one point. What happened with that? It was a good location. Yeah, my partner kept saying that too. It says a lot without saying so much that he's tried to get out before and it didn't pan out. Really great introduction while also still keeping some mystique.
Yep, and that's Brian Koppelman is the annoying guy. Oh yeah, he lost some weight, bought some hair too. Yeah, yeah, with your money. And in this kind of very cinematic down an elevator, illegal poker game that's, in Chinatown somewhere, just a real, like, who is this guy? You really get a lot out of it. Yeah. And his partner, as we find out, turns out to be somebody who he should not have trusted for several reasons, but
that's right.
Yeah.
He heads out. He returns a call that he missed. It says, Michael, you got to come. A huge client of mine just hit someone with his car. Seems to be sober. And as he heads to this guy's place, his GPS is on the fritz, representative perhaps of him being lost emotionally as well. It's also kind of funny to just stick George in a car on the Cross Bronx Expressway and say, all right, buddy, start driving. We're right behind you.
Yeah, go to Westchester. Yeah, it's the movie does a lot of fun timeline stuff, and then you kind of go back into it and you see it from the other angle. It's like a Rashomon type thing, right? Kind of thing where you see it from different characters' perspective or whatever. But it's, I always think of Lion King 1.5, which is the dumbest possible version of that. But that's the one that I
recently watched, actually.
It's like, well, you see the whole movie from Timon and Pumbaa's perspective. Okay, because there's still a lot of stuff that went on that we didn't see, apparently. And I don't necessarily always love the timeline stuff and like movies that start kind of in media, where it's like, 6 months earlier or, 3 days earlier. But it really works in this because I think by the end, it's a very satisfying kind of filling in of all the details. Yeah,
it's also impactful because there is a huge question mark that they leave like open for most of the movie. Then the car explodes. Spoiler alert for a couple minutes from now when we're talking about it, but. Like, to have that lingering over the whole movie, you go, how is this, like, what gets him to this point is so great. It hooks you in so effectively. Just really good stuff.
Yeah, it's really great. And it's, looking back on it, like, watching it another time, after seeing it all the way through, you're like, oh, yeah, no wonder he, like, didn't give a shit about this rich asshole who hit somebody. Like, like, he's got there's a lot going on right now that we didn't know about, you know what I mean, at that time. And that he didn't know about, that there was a bomb in his car when he was having a conversation with this idiot.
Right.
But, Arthur had, his friend was his like best friend at work or whatever you want to call him, had just suspiciously overdosed. And, everyone else at work is basically happy about it because he'd become inconvenient. There's a lot of stuff going on where it's like, this is pretty disgusting stuff. Anyway, now I got to help this guy who clearly should be in trouble, but needs me to get him out of it.
Yeah, dented car is one in a line of several luxury vehicles. He's making excuse after excuse. But when Michael tries to talk frankly with him and does try to help him with like a proper recommendation, this guy goes, I don't like how this is going. Bring Walter back.
Right. I want to call the the corporate partner who has nothing to do with any kind of criminal. Yeah, exactly. Like, it's like, there's one thing about, about, I'm sure many professions, but about law, like, if you're a guy who does like deal documents all day for these big corporate mergers or whatever this guy does, right? He's a banker or something, some kind of rich guy. You don't know anything about how to deal with, like city cops, or like, state police, like what that what's smart, what's not smart, how to handle, it's just not part of your daily thing. So, people like that would not hire themselves as their lawyer. You know what I mean? So
Right.
this guy Walter is has nothing to offer you. You know what I mean? It's already, the wheels are already in motion, buddy. Like you got to just take what you can get at that point.
Yeah, Walter promised him a miracle worker. Michael's like, I'm a janitor,
Yeah.
dude.
There's no play here. There's no champagne room.
Ooh, it's good. And Dennis, like you said, Dennis O'Hare as this rich dickhead at the beginning is amazing. It does set the tone and let you see how Clayton works. Apparently, this character was originally supposed to be older, but Dennis came in for another role, and they felt this casting made it better than it was on the page, not only because of the performance itself, but because the character had more to lose with some youth to him. He's not the youngest man, but he certainly still has plenty to go, and he's worked hard to get to this point in his life, or had it handed to him, probably in some capacity. But, there is, he sees it all slipping away, and he had plans on enjoying it for much longer. So that youth, I think, is interesting to add to the character.
Yeah, and also, like, realistically, what's going to happen to this guy? You know what I mean? Like, even if he doesn't take anyone's advice, he's not going to jail for 100. I mean, if the guy on the bike is dead, I guess, because he doesn't know, obviously, then that's, But even still, you spend enough money, you're probably looking at, I don't know, you probably wouldn't even go to jail. I mean, obviously, it's devastating for his reputation and et cetera at the country club or whatever, but. I, in terms of real consequences, I'm not sure that there is going to be a whole lot there. But again, someone like that can't even tolerate sort of social consequences or financial consequences, within the services you have to pay for. He wants it to just be gone, which seems difficult to imagine how that would happen.
Yeah.
Because he's spinning through all these theories, and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, someone stole your car and hit a guy, and what? You know what I mean? Like, what's the next?
And also, actually, that thief shouldn't even get in trouble because the bank they changed the angle, and now there's these crazy lights.
Take that, you take the angle, et cetera, and so on.
Yeah. Also, fun fact, Clooney won the Oscar for Syriana the night before they filmed this scene, so he was riding high going into it.
He's got that extra juice. You can feel it.
Yeah. He takes a drive on the road in question as dawn breaks. Some horses judge him from the top of a hill. Strong, quiet, serene, very pastoral scene that he gets out of the car and climbs into. He's desperate to escape. Tony said the horses lived on that hill for a month to make them comfortable for the shoot. It's kind of funny to just like drop them off and be like, all right, see you in 30 days.
That's great. Yeah. I didn't know. That's a fun one. There's that feeling of everything in like the civilized world, quote unquote, is so grim and disgusting that I just want to go look at some, like, oh cool, like anything that's not that is like the best thing ever. So of course he's going to get out of his car and just kind of stare at a horse, and obviously there's all this
the
stuff.
horse can't manipulate anybody.
Exactly. And there's some of it probably his son's book kicking around in his head, what is it, Realm and Conquest, and it's the fantasy stuff, who knows, but it is just like it's a striking thing to have him just kind of be like, I need to just get away from anything that isn't nature, basically.
Yeah, definitely. And it's I think it's great that you mentioned the book, because I didn't realize this until they pointed it out in the commentary, but when he's flipping through the book later, there is a picture of several horses just like chilling. And so he's like, oh, this is an image that I recognize from the book. And that's part of why he climbs out as well.
And he looked at the book, which means he's like, he looked at it enough that he remembers.
He's a good father now.
He's a decent dad. Yeah, exactly.
But he turns, also all the driving in the movie is practical. They said, it looks really good, but it was really hard to do and we'll never do it again. That, and they said, never write the words just before dawn.
Yes, I would imagine that's a huge pain in the ass. Yeah, that makes sense.
He turns around suddenly, though, as the horses are scared off because his car has exploded. What the hell? Cut to 4 days earlier.
There it is.
There it is. We're in a kid's room as he gets ready for custody transfer. Dude has not one, but 2 Evangelion toys in his room hanging on the lamp, which he seems a little young for that show, but that's cool. Good taste, I guess. Dad is, of course, Michael. This is Henry, his son, who regales him with this book that he's been reading. A lot of characters with no allegiances, hiding in the woods, trying to survive. They're completely paranoid about the others. What if one of them is your mortal enemy? Not only does this, of course, describe the state that we are living in, but it also demonstrates that Henry is frustrated with the amount of effort that Mike is putting into fatherhood. I also found it kind of ironic that he asked Dad, want to bet, when we, having seen the movie now, know that he has a gambling problem.
Oh yes, that's funny. Yeah, I love him describing the book because it's such a little kid telling us, like, there are things like that where he could be giving the most like cut and dry, simple explanation of what this book is about, but there is things that you just can't describe without sounding like a total, you know what I mean? And if you were an adult explaining it, you would sound like an 8-year-old kid too, right? Like it's just like, yeah, but nobody knows, and then also, and it's like the classic, like, yeah, I mean, I'm sure I did this to my parents too, but it's just like, oh yeah, that's really interesting, And then we obviously have Arthur, who's completely enraptured by this and takes it much more seriously, but it's such a great little kid thing. I really, yeah, because it is like the family stuff, or the like his son and it doesn't really. That's like the only part that's like not like essential to sort of like the, you know what I mean, the rest of the plot, right? I mean, like having a family, obviously his, the stuff with the bar and his brother, both of his brothers, play important roles and everything. But like his kid, other than just kind of, this is another dimension of his life, but it is nice that it does play in a meaningful way, other than just, oh yeah, it also he's got a kid, because that's kind of doesn't really do anything for me personally, but I'm kind of biased against like kid roles in movies in general, or teen roles especially, because it's like, a lot of the time they're lousy. But
that's a risk. But that's a risk for not much reward if you're just doing it for that.
He's also got a kid. Yeah, but it's just it works. So
definitely. And apparently Tony wrote a few actual chapters for the book, so that's fun.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, I would love to get a prop version of Realm and Conquest, like buy it from some auction site and then just put it up on the shelf. And see if anyone ever notices. One of my like 3 friends that I talk about this movie all the time would be like, "Is that?" Yep, yes, it is.
Just like very conspicuously reading one night.
Yeah, just checking it out.
He's at an auction for the stuff at Tim's, the bar we heard mentioned, and it's not going well. He's going to be about $75K short to cover the debts of the eponymous brother Tim, part of a tumultuous life, apparently. Meanwhile, Tilda is getting ready for this interview. I love seeing her practice, like getting the exact intonation that she wants to use in the mirror, and also having this cut through the conversation as well. It apparently wasn't cut this way in the script, but it's the first footage that he sent back to Jon, and Jon was like, I'm going to try something a little different. Meanwhile, Tony's like, oh God, my brother is fucking with me on the first damn weekend.
Yeah, no, it's a great... The comparison of what she's like in private and what she's like in public is such a great... It is a really stark and great. And yeah, I mean, even if because it's such a... It should not be hard, because you know what the questions are, clearly. You've already written your answers. But it also says a lot about her that she had to like actually write the answers and can't kind of off the cuff it. You know what I mean? She's like...
For those softballs.
Right, exactly. Like nothing can be left to any kind... And then when she actually has to do some improvising, obviously she fucks everything up.
That's
more
right.
or less.
Yeah. Yeah. In this interview, she's bragging about her company, U North, and the diverse legal issues that they deal with across the globe. As in-house counsel, they outsource it to local firms who know the legalese of the area. She also says balance, that's something you search for your whole life, which is the answer she gives after trying on several that are clearly bullshit, to reinforce that she does not have it and has not found it. So
yeah, this is it. And that's what it's good for her. The company, I'm sure the company's very proud of her not having anything else going on in her life but the company. So
yeah. She's interrupted by an urgent matter, though. Arthur Edens has just stripped down naked in a deposition room in Milwaukee. And this is the man who we heard at the beginning. We hear it again as Michael boards the plane to see what the hell was going on. And he says, I admit it, the nudity was a mistake. It was wrong, it was lame, it was obvious, and therapeutically it was completely useless. Great line.
And I love you. Right when it cuts. Yeah, I mean... In this case, it should be said, it's about a weed killer. Or, this is like a Monsanto level conglomerate, like huge company, or DuPont, or take your pick. But it leached into the water and it gave a bunch of people diseases. Right, that's basically what's going on. And the deposition is of somebody who her like whole family basically died except for one of her siblings, I think. They worked on a farm, And yeah, he's presumably he's there to probably poke holes in everything she's saying, basically, and instead he's taking off his clothes and saying he loves her and he's sorry. And these are not things that you want your lawyer to say in a $1 billion lawsuit. So
No, it's true. 400 depositions, 100 motions, 5 changes of venue, 8,500 documents in discovery. I've spent 6 years of scheming and stalling and screaming, and for what? I've spent 12% of my life defending the reputation of a deadly weed killer.
I mean, the percentage thing is striking and upsetting, honestly.
Brutal.
Because you don't want to think about that with anything in your own life either. Like, what have I been doing for however long? I will say 8,500 documents is weirdly not that many, so I'm not really sure. I think it would be that's sort of a weird one to me. Maybe because it's not electronic, but
oh, excuse me, I misread. It's 85,000. I did fuck that up.
85,000 is not that many unless that's documents and not pages. You know, but I mean, you know, if you're talking these big litigations, yeah, that 85,000 is certainly getting more in the ballpark.
Closer.
Because again, like if you're North, you are producing everything that's ever come across anyone's desk in an effort to hide anything that's bad and make it impossible for this, you know, plaintiff's counsel to comb through everything and find anything bad, find anything that they actually would want to use. That's the idea.
Right. He says they have 30,000 billable hours on the U-North account, and he and Marty went to a brothel to celebrate, and to make it last, he started doing this math, and that's a big mistake. How many years has he been defending this chain of molecules that killed Perfect Anna's parents and brother? And, well, the brother is not actually dead yet, but dying. This gives them cancer, they said.
Yeah.
Michael says, if you were going to go off your meds, you promised to call first. Arthur says, sue me. Which is very funny. $50 million in fees, senior litigating partner, and an accomplice. Manic depressive, and Shiva, the god of death. They have this back and forth. You know, it's so difficult to have somebody be like, you were doing the right thing when you feel in your core that it is so wrong.
Yeah, I mean, he was doing his job, right? But the problem is that his job is not, he's realizing that it's not really the right thing to be doing. So that's
right.
Yeah.
Tilda's character is watching the deposition video where it happened. Anna was testifying about the note left by her mother. This is when Arthur broke down. And she gets briefed on Michael, how he's special counsel. He's not a partner. He kind of worked in wills and trusts, I believe, was his specialty before.
That's correct. And I think he was a prosecutor for a little while before that.
Right, in the DA's office.
Yeah, he's not even partner. You know what I mean? He's just kind of this guy who's like, and it's true. You would kind of be like, who? What? This is the guy? Like, who is this? What? Like, is he even involved in this case? But that's who they got. And
that's him.
Yep.
Arthur is lying in bed. Henry called for Michael, but Arthur picked up, so Henry is telling him all about the book. Arthur is like, okay, I am picking up on the metaphor of how this relates to me when the characters are all having a dream calling them, but they think it's just to them and they're going crazy, so they don't want to admit it. And it's like, okay, this is clearly an Arthur stand-in here. Meanwhile, Michael is having a meeting with Karen, which is going very poorly. She wants an explanation, but doesn't want to actually hear it when it's provided. And she says, we pay him for his time. They, in the commentary, described this moment as rusted out charm. And that he's so worn down, he can't even bring himself to be pleasant to this woman. And I just think that's such a great descriptor of how he is feeling just like he's falling apart.
Yeah.
What he is molecularly is changing.
Yeah, and he's like got nothing left. And once it's clear that she's not buying it, like the pretense just drops, because what's the point? You know, like that's kind of where it ends up, right? Which makes sense, because if somebody's not, he's got no good answers. So if she's not buying his little act and she's not googly eyed when he sits down and is like, oh, you're kind of an interesting guy, then there's nothing to say. Yeah, what do you want me to say? You know, you assume for malpractice. You know what I mean? That's where we're headed here, probably. You know, that's or worse, which is obviously where we get to. But yeah, there's not a whole lot you can really offer if you're him, and his job is just to kind of do damage control, basically, right? So
definitely. And she does storm off to her hotel room. I think that this is really interesting that over and over and over again, we see these hotel rooms and motel rooms really sort of looking at the displacement burden of what these people are doing to themselves.
Yeah, and you have like the 3 drone, young associates who are just there, who have been living and breathing this for however long, probably, and then their whole life gets blown up, for all intents and purposes. Like, what are we supposed to do? Like, we're supposed to keep doing depositions, and Arthur he's the boss. Like, what do we and Michael's like, just keep doing it, it's fine. And yeah, it's a very interesting thing to think about, because there are all kinds of people that work a ton that are not involved in this intrigue at all. They're just like, whoa, like this guy like took his clothes off, and now, but like. We have 3 more of these things this week. Are we supposed to just do them? Who's taking the deposition? Like, are we, Yeah, it's a very interesting. Yeah, and one of them is Catherine Watterson. There's a lot of kind of very small blink and you'll miss it, like people who are like, oh, we like Maggie Sipp. Hey. Maggie Sipp is in it for a second. She says like, did Marty get you or something? Like she says something to Michael like very quickly, and she's in it for like literally 1 second. Mm-hmm. It's it's a fun little thing to see.
Definitely. And so Karen calls to bring in Vern. Excuse me, Mr. Vern. You know what I mean?
Get Jim Varney in there. R.I.P. the king.
This is while looking at a confidential report saying they know about the damage this weed killer does, which was in Arthur's bag, to her consternation. A few great things about this scene. One is the gentle, like, voice modulation on Vern's side. That makes me think it's, like, part of the discretion tactics. Mm-hmm. Also, when it's revealed that Karen has, like, a plastic bag glove on to handle stuff.
Yeah.
Arthur has escaped the next morning, though. He's covered his tracks with the sound of the shower, and he wrote a note that says, "Make believe it's not madness," scrawled on the wall. We think it's referring to him, but he is, of course, talking about what they do. I also, going back and revisiting this, because I watched it a bunch of times in preparation, not only for the commentary, but just because it's a fucking great movie. And so there's a moment later on where they're talking about how there's no way that he wouldn't leave a note before killing himself. And he couldn't go to the bathroom without a memo.
Couldn't take a piss without writing a memo. Yeah.
And here he did left a note just to fucking dash out the motel.
Yeah.
I think that this is really where Michael is like, it doesn't add up. Like, that's kind of the tipping point for him, where he says, I have to get in there and see what the deal is. So that's like a nice little foreshadow, I think.
Yeah, definitely. And he's got the guy. He bribes the cop or whatever to watch him overnight, mm-hmm. And he says, if you have any Knicks tickets or whatever it is. Right. That's another small role for an actor who's in other stuff. I don't know his name, but he was in The Wire, right? He's one of the was he one of the report? I forget which season it is, but yeah, just a real smorgasbord of just like, oh hey, it's that person.
Yeah. The lawyers are searching Arthur's office. There's a photo of better times with his wife, now dead, and daughter, not on speaking terms and abroad.
Mars.
Yeah. Michael comes in and they're pissed. You need to get this guy under control. They want him committed, and they explicitly say they don't care where, just to make this company, who has knowingly produced and sold deadly weed killer, to be happy.
It is existential for them too, because they're working on some kind of merger or something, and if this those things are very fragile, and if they find out that there's like a potential malpractice claim, this huge like blow up, and it's a huge reputational hit, I'm sure it would mm-hmm. be. It doesn't take much for something like that to just teeter into, and then you get taken over and people get pushed out and, who knows what. So, yeah, I mean, it is a big problem for them. There's no question. How sympathetic they are is a different issue, but
right.
Purely on the black and white analysis of it, yeah, there's a lot of problems that Arthur's causing, and unfortunately, yeah, the only one who knows anything about how to get people committed is Arthur. So,
right.
Not that they couldn't hire outside counsel, but they probably want to keep it in-house as much as they can so no one has to hear about what happened.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Arthur is just wandering in a crowd in Times Square, enjoying being with the people. There is a guy watching him, in contact with a guy breaking into his place. We've already seen that these are the U-North goons, Mr. Vern and Mr. Eicher. And one of them is like messing around in the medicine cabinet when Michael calls, hoping to find Arthur. No luck, so he leaves a message on the machine, but it's full. This is message number 40. People are upset. They've been calling and calling and calling.
Think about how many emails he probably has. Oh boy.
I'm sure. Michael admits in the message that he actually agrees that U-North sucks and the case sucks, but Arthur's behavior is out of control. The mailbox is full, though, and like I said, this doesn't actually stick. Meanwhile, Arthur is seeing an ad for U-North out in Times Square, conspicuously above a bus wrap for Wicked, which I thought was fun. Arthur calls Anna, the woman who was deposed in the video, and the goons are listening in on the call. And the mob is calling in Michael's debts in a week. They say appearance is everything. His $12K looks bad because that's all he has to offer. I also do wonder, they mentioned earlier that he was in the mob task force in the DA's office. I kind of wonder if that's how he got in on the games, maybe a little corruption led him down this path. These little details that aren't explicit about his backstory, but sort of give you details to fill it in yourself with like, oh, here's what it might be.
Yeah, you definitely get the sense he knew who to call to get the loan from those days, right? Or at least became aware of kind of the channels to go through.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have the 70,000? Not lying around, no. It's a lease.
Right. Yeah. Everything's from the office. Yeah. The car is theirs. So Michael asks for a loan from Bach, $80K. And there's a merger happening that's going to put Michael out on the street, and he's freaking out. I only opened the bar because I wanted a way out, or even just to be back on the litigation team. I was good at it, he screams. And in the commentary, they said this is Michael's lowest point. Yeah,
and it says, with that good old day stuff, you want to keep it there, leave it there, okay? Because you might find out you're not as good as you remember, blah blah blah. That's the big Pollock moment,
right? You have a niche. That's what everybody wants. When did you get so delicate?
Yeah.
He asks after declining the loan, at least until Arthur is under control.
I got to say, something that's always struck me too is that he only asks for, because this is like this is basically a shakedown, right? I mean, like he says it's not, and whatever, but like in a sense it is, because it's like, well, we got a really big problem that you need me to fix, right? And I'm going to fix it. He's not saying he's not going to do it. He's not saying he's going to mess it up or anything like that,
Well, maybe you should have.
Right. But he only asks for enough to, I guess, just to make sure he's got enough, right? On top of, and he's going to sign this 3-year, all these onerous, NDA, all this stuff, basically give up all his leverage forever. When you're in a position like him, he clearly doesn't have a lot of money saved up. 80 grand, it's all going out the window to the loan sharks. He's not even getting ahead, he's just getting back to zero. It's just what a situation he's created for himself here,
Yeah, nightmare stuff. Henry is getting dragged along while Michael looks for Arthur, who he finds carrying 17 baguettes, including the one he gives Michael.
Did you count them?
I did count them.
I've never counted them. That's funny.
The number is 17. He's also maybe wearing multiple scarves, and I was like, that could be mania, or it could be 2007's fashion.
That's true. It's hard to tell. It was a weird time.
Somebody apparently took 18 hours to clear this alley of snow and then dry it so that they could shoot there.
God. Yeah, and that's some like random Tribeca alley, right? I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, because it looks it, obviously. Yeah, that's movie magic right there, right? God, what a mess. That's really funny.
As good as it feels, you know where this goes, said Michael. And Arthur retorts, no, what makes it feel good is that I don't know where it goes.
Not what you want to hear.
Yeah, right. He's distraught to hear that they know what he's been doing with the case, but Michael pleads with him to let him help, but he walks away after some more intense exchange that makes it clear he's not going willingly. He at least has enough retention of his faculties to be like, you don't want to see me in court if it comes to like you trying to commit me.
The last place you want to see me is in court.
Ooh.
Yeah, when he goes into that mode, man, it's so good. Obviously, you think he got the horses for that. Is a classic. He's got the statute and the legal standard ready to go. Like he's just like, this is, yeah. I mean, and there's no reason for him to know this stuff other than to prepare for this kind of situation. Like it's not like it's something he would come across ever. It's just wonderful stuff. And the guy, I'm your friend. It's like the what are you? It's just he's amazing. It's really great.
And that night he calls the law office and basically records himself into the record discussing this smoking gun document. And it says that not only is it causing this cancer with particulates getting into the water, and not only did they know about it, this was actually a cost-benefit analysis to adding something that let people know something was wrong. And they said it would require a complete redesign, so just keep it as it is, and all the higher-ups signed off on this decision.
Including the big man himself, Don Jeffries. The
DJ, come on, dog.
And you don't need me to tell you what that means.
Right.
Yeah, severe tissue damage, all that. I mean, yeah, it's like cartoonishly bad. Insane that it was in writing. I mean, it's some scientist covering their ass. again, not a, just from if you're doing any kind of malfeasance, not a document you really want to exist. So it's not, pick up the phone. It's not something you want to have out there, especially if you're doing evil deeds. So yeah, I love that he does the, he's got a great sense of style where he is playing the little North audio underneath the ad, we plant the seed, and that little, and stopping it and rewinding it to make sure everyone can, it's soundtracking the whole thing. And it's also making it so you can't, I guess he thinks he's being, although maybe not, because I mean, he like is suspicious about his phone being tapped or, based on what Michael said to him, like, how do they know that? How do they know who I'm calling? But, he's calling them. So maybe he's not worried about them overhearing because he's just doing it to them anyway. So never mind.
Well, now looped in, Tilda is like, oh, geez, I just wish I could think of a way to contain this. And the goon is like, well, we could try and steal the paper or the data, maybe. And she's like, yes. Or...
Do you guys have anything else?
Yeah. He does pick up what she's putting down, though. I love this moment where he asks if they should bring Dawn in on this. And she's extremely insulted. How fucking dare you try to go over my head? Particularly cutting because she is out of her depth, clearly.
Yeah.
We've talked about how bad she is at improvising, and he is like, I don't think this is a good idea. That's clearly the path he's trying to lead her away from. Doesn't work out, though.
Yeah, you'd think, again, ass covering. You want to bring Don in on this. I don't know what you're doing to protect him. You're throwing yourself on the, but she obviously doesn't think it's going to go as sideways as it goes.
Yeah, I think she just wants to protect that image of competence.
Right.
And if he's like, oh, you're letting this shit happen, you're out. She's Karen.
Yeah, she's there's also that great little moment where he's like, so is that a go as in, like where she like what are we talking about here? Where they have to like clarify because she's trying to be like wink wink, and he's like, I need you to say what I'm doing, I need you to be clear here because this is we deal in absolutes. Yeah,
great fun homage to a network with them out there. And then it turns into this wild murder. I felt like I kept waiting for it to turn into like a Mulholland Drive comedy of errors where that guy is trying to get the little black book and he shoots the lady in the office next to them and everything.
Oh, yeah.
And instead, they're just like grimly effective.
It's no matter how many times you see it, it really is like there's moments in, where things turn a little bit and it is like, oh, this bums me out. You know what I mean? Like as much as I love the movie and love rewatching it, it is just kind of like, it's like I think about like American Psycho, the same kind of thing where that movie's so fun once all like the murders start happening and all that stuff, it's like, it's obviously less fun in a variety, at least for me. But like the parts with all like the business cards and they go to the club and they're weird dancing in their suits and stuff, and all the sort of 80s like lingo, all that stuff is like super. But this is like that where it's like, man, this movie's so good. And then you just get Arthur twitching his hands and his foot, when they get him, First they hit him with that the paralyzing inhaler, which I don't know what that was, and then they get him between the toes. Just a really unpleasant and like you said, grimly effective. They're you better hit it. They know what they're doing and they get it done. It's funny because it doesn't seem like they need to be as incredibly like fast as they are. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's not like anybody's looking for some, and they have time to clean up. Nobody knows where he is. It's not like he has a meeting in 10 minutes and they got, somebody has to come in and find him. It's sort of a strange. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, I love you mentioned sort of the twitching and everything. The camera just like slowly zooming in on his face, and you still hear the noise of them bustling around in the background and like cleaning things up. Just heartbreaking. They didn't rehearse the movie overall, but these guys rehearsed this scene for a month and pays off. This was one take. Wow. They nailed it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's it definitely comes across as rehearsed in a realistic and good way, not in like it's not like choreographed like a dance sequence or something, but it's very, this is how guys like this would accomplish something like this. And it is very, there's no music, there's no like long pan on, like this is like the end of Arthur, this guy that we've gotten to know. It's very just like, okay, now he's garbage. You know what I mean? Like the second he's not breathing, the second his heart's not beating anymore, like, okay, now, it's like, that's it.
Yeah.
It's a stark moment.
Across town, Tim shows up at Mike's father's house with Mike also there because it's Mike's father's birthday. This is after Michael Clayton has been 1 foot out the door the whole time. He took a light remark about Tim's sickness causing him to fall off the wagon, which is going around pretty personally. On the commentary, they said this was actually their neighborhood growing up. They were just down the hill as lads.
Oh yeah, they're from up in what are they, like Orange County or somewhere, right? They're right. In like yeah. It's Are you 1? Are you 2? Are you 3?
So funny.
They get like genuinely mad. Shut up! Enough.
There's also this moment I really like where one of the guests is clearly like asking him for a favor, and you just like get this all the time. Doctors, can you look at this? Lawyers, can you handle this?
Yeah. It's like, yeah, I'll call you about that. I love that they call him Mickey. That's a fun little thing. That, yeah, because it's such he's created a very different world and a different persona, but he's still, no matter how much of a big shot, he thinks he is or whatever, he's still Mickey to these people.
Yeah, I also think it's really interesting to introduce Tim so late. You hear about him, and you start thinking, oh, he's just not going to actually be in the movie.
Right.
And then he shows up and does so much with so little. He's a sober 8 days now, and he wants forgiveness, which Michael can't give him.
Yeah. That's all I think about. How do I? Yeah.
Yeah.
Give her hubcaps back.
And as Michael drives away with Henry, he has to stop and give him a little speech to Henry. It's also really to himself about how tough Henry is, and that's good. You won't be like that, looking up and wondering why shit is falling around you. And they do connect for a moment. In the commentary, they were like, if you've ever raised kids, they take praise in really weird ways. And here, this child just sort of lets in this weird speech. Like, it's a very bizarre thing that he says to him.
It's a very grown-up thing to say to, like, an 8-year-old kid. Yeah, it's very, like, the sky's falling around you, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, on your worst day, and yeah, it's almost strange, but it works within the context of the movie. But it is the kid's like, okay, I'm growing up a little bit today,
That's right. And this is interrupted by a phone call, which is about Arthur. It's been framed as a suicide, pills all over the place. They clarify in the commentary that what they saw when they were digging through his apartment the first night is the medication that he had, and so they use that as the drug to force an overdose with the injection.
Okay.
That makes the cops not look any further than that.
Sure.
They just want to close the case. They say he has this prescription. He's in this maniac state. Yeah, done and dusted, they say. On top of that, the place is sealed for weeks. So that's it, Michael. Sorry, pal. Apparently that actor who he talks to was actually a cop who became an actor. He's another one of those, like, those guys who you just see all the time. Was an actual cop.
Yeah, he was in Dexter. Yeah. He and his wife are both shitbag cops, according to Michael's brother. We find out. Now I got to owe a favor to these people? Yeah.
Michael's at the wake now. Someone leaves a conversation with Bach on the phone to go to work. Classic leaving funerals. Bach and Mike mourn Arthur. They can't quite figure out how to make it make sense, as I talked about. But they look at each other and admit it. We caught a lucky break, as Bach says. Also, U-North is settling, apparently, in principle at least. They said, get out before someone can get a hold of this information.
It's a motivational dead zone, I believe they said, because they're working on contingency, so there's only so much. Yeah, it's very...
Right.
Yep.
Michael goes to call Anna, the muse, and her sister says, she's in New York, dog. How could you leave her at the airport
this is
like
a young
this?
girl, an innocent girl. Yeah.
Ugh. The goons are watching the inn that she's at, and who should arrive but old Mikey Clayton. Mickey, he's here.
Yeah. Not what you want if you're these guys. It's like, okay, this guy's like following he's like a bloodhound here. This is not good. He's unraveling.
He's on the trail, yeah. She talks about feeling stupid for believing Arthur. This scene is it's an homage to Clute specifically, they said. And Michael, he's on the trail. He says, you didn't tell anyone, so something must be wrong. Like, he expected that she did disappoint him, and that was why he killed himself. And she says, no, I didn't tell anybody.
No, she promised.
Yeah, that's right. Merritt Weaver really spectacular in this scene. I mean, she's just knocks it out of the park.
Very, very innocent. And yeah, I mean, just like exactly what you almost see why he's like, sees her as this kind of pinnacle of virtue.
Yeah, exactly.
And the antithesis of everything that they're doing.
Michael leverages a favor to get the seal so he can break into the apartment and seal it back up nice and tidy. He's got to see what's out of place. And there is champagne and 2 glasses in the fridge, so he definitely didn't kill himself. He's on board with that theory now. And he goes through the documents, nothing, until he sees the book with the red cover that Henry has been blabbering about this whole damn movie. He flips through, he stops on this peaceful images of a horse on a hill. The book is covered in notes from Adams that say that he was actually reading it. Gravity also reveals something huge, a receipt for a copy place order. Now, the goons had tracked Michael there, and they call the cops. This scene is wild. They're so over the top. It's like grimly funny because they are like stuttering in terror at having to confront him. And this makes them threaten to blow his head off. It's so terrifyingly real where he's like, I am just like holding a book,
yeah, it's like,
and they're ready to kill him.
Whoa. Yeah, like 2 cops like on their first day, both of them.
Yeah. He is arrested. His brother calls in even more favors to get him out. And Michael is like, who called 911? This makes no sense. But the brother doesn't want to hear it. You got all these cops thinking you're a lawyer, and all these lawyers thinking you're some kind of cop. You got everybody fooled except you. You know exactly what you are.
Yeah.
Presumably, that's a piece of shit, I guess, is the implication.
A janitor. Yeah.
Yeah. It turns out it was 3,000 copies of the report at the copy place, now given the title of the book, Summons to Conquest, or the chapter that was so revealing, illuminating for Arthur. Michael gives the kid $50 to hold him there for a week.
Thanks, man.
Then leaves. Yeah, so funny. The goon is there with a funny, wry expression on his face, which really made me laugh. And then the kid is Sam Gilroy, which is Tony's son. And his wife is also Michael Clayton's sister-in-law that we saw give him a little kiss. And he was like, my wife was so happy to give Clooney a kiss that day. He reports back to Karen with Mike heading to the office. Bach says, hey, we did it. We're going to cut you this check with strings attached like a bulletproof and retroactive confidentiality agreement. Mike doesn't want to talk about the money, though. He wants to talk about Arthur, who he is now agreeing is correct. And Marty says, this is news? I got to tell you, after 15 years, how we pay the rent? If he went public, this whole firm is tanked. And Bach walks out. You get this amazing shot where you have all this negative space in the vacuum where the other people in the room were. And you really feel how alone Michael Clayton is. He literally has the dilemma in his hands, the check and the report. And he's so isolated.
Yep.
He squares up the debt, paid in full at the restaurant, and he takes the last $5,000 to the poker game that we saw at the beginning. Meanwhile, a goon plants the explosive we saw earlier in the car. But he left too quick because this guy was being a fucking annoying guy to play poker with down there.
Yep.
So he gets out there, and the goons didn't get the bomb planted quite right, which is why the GPS was all fucked up. So the pieces are falling into place. There was a scene that they shot where they discuss the bomb and how loud it is compared to the assassination of Arthur. And they said that is purposeful to make it look as different as possible so that they don't get connected. Mm-hmm. And it's meant to be a Russian bomb taking him out for his gambling problem. And then Jon cut it out for pacing. And Tony was like, I get fucking mad when people are like, this doesn't make any sense. Why would they do it that way? Because we shot the scene.
But yeah, I mean, there's the scene later where it's like they're in the boardroom and it's like, you hear about Michael Clayton? It's like, yeah. He's like, oh, yeah. No, he's like, did you hear? Yeah, we settled due north. It's like, no, Michael Clayton. It's like, he's like, car bomb. And they're just like, oh my God. Because it is like, what? Like, what are you talking about? Like, that's not what we do. Like, what? Car bomb? Yeah, it's insane.
Mm-hmm. This is a really effective scene, though, despite knowing how it turns out, which is, I think, a very difficult thing to do, because now we go, okay, we've seen how effective these guys are in the Arthur assassination.
Yeah.
So what went wrong? Now the ticking clock is on to the explosion. What happens between now and then? They follow him. The tracker being fucked means they lose track of him when he goes down a different path. This is where he gets out to look at the horses, and in a panic, the goon explodes it without actually having eyes on. They report his death. It passes up the ladder as he hides. He even calls his brother for a ride. He's cashing in all of his chips. It is funny and interesting that the way Michael says what to his brother is the exact same way that his son says what to him when he is in the car.
Yeah. It's Chekhov's Tim, right? Because it's like, what?
Exactly.
Like, this all has a purpose. There's a reason for all this.
Yep. You get a parallax view reference with the empty convention floor as Karen gives her victory speech to the board. She says the settlement was going to be $3 billion, but it's been strung out long enough that the lawyer fees were going to drop. Not to nothing, by the way, just from 40 to 24%. And this is, as she says, a motivational dead zone in her talk to the board. Plus, the tax benefit to it being under $600 million and happening in this fiscal year means it will be completely written off.
So there you go.
They get away with killing these people.
I mean, the memo was right. right? I mean, it's a little bit of stress. They had, a lot of wheels had to spin for a while, and a bunch of people, a bunch of lawyers made a bunch of salary off it. But other than that, it didn't hurt the company.
They take some time to discuss, and she heads out, but Michael is waiting for her. Pretty freaky, huh? You see Arthur? He's wandering around there somewhere. Really funny goof. I like this a lot.
I mean, how's it going in there is something that it's a very, how's it going in there? It's just such a, it's never far from my mind. Just a very satisfying, because it's such a satisfying. I mean, this whole sequence in a movie that doesn't have a lot of satisfying stuff in it because it's meant to not be, and it's not satisfying. It's satisfying briefly, and then he kind of trails off and is staring off into the distance. But like, you get this little win, even though at what it's a very at what cost thing. But it's man,
sure, Pyrrhic for sure,
owned.
Yeah, and this confrontation is great. It was one take for the Clune dog. He's so excited. You're so blind, Karen. You should have paid me off, not tried to kill me. And he demands $10 million, or I'll do 5 to forget Arthur. 5 is easier, she says. And then he says, the other 5 is to forget about the other guys. Got her ass.
You want $10 million? Like, she just can't even talk.
After they just saved so much money, they just said that this is not going to cost their company anything.
Her problem is, she doesn't have the ability to just make $10 million appear, right? That's true. There's no, like, the money's there, and if the company knew, the board would fucking pay it, right? I mean, like,
right.
But she doesn't have a $10 million, like, the lawyers don't have any, like, she doesn't have she can't make that. I have no idea how that would even happen. She has to, like, go to the finance department. Like, I don't know what. Maybe there's like,
what does that line item look like?
Right. Maybe Don Jeffries built in some slush fund or something, and she can pull it from that or whatever. But like, there's paper trails for these things. I have no idea how that would happen. So even assuming she could do it, I have no idea what that would even involve. But yeah, she's completely like, okay. And all she can do is kind of put him off and be like, fine, done. Like, I'll figure it out later. But yes, done, fine, yes.
Yeah, right. She's desperate for anything to not pull this out from under her. This victory is within reach.
Yeah, did you see who signed this thing? It's like, why don't we go in there and pass the hat around and see if Don Jeffries wants to, it's so good.
So she says, you have a deal, and he says, you are so fucked. I love Tony going nice and simple with it. No zippy one-liner really, or gotchas, just, you're fucked.
Yep.
Feels very real.
You don't want the money, just, again, like, her mouth is numb, like she got stung by a bee or something, and she just can't even talk. Yeah, it's great. Yeah, it's a totally, like, liminal kind of space that they're in, not to overuse, like, an Instagram account term or whatever, but like, it's one of these places that's not, like, really a place, right? It's like when you're on your way into this room, or you're kind of, waiting around, or there'll be like it's where there's, like, if you go to a wedding at one of these places, there'll be like a couple tables for people to kind of, like, stand around at, out there or whatever, when they're not, like, on the dance floor. Like, that's like,
right.
It's like not a real place that this is happening in. Yeah, yeah, great scene, obviously. He makes good in some small way, I guess, right?
Yeah, he was recording all along. The police come to arrest them. Karen is collapsed on the ground. I really love that they, in the mix, make sure you hear one of them go, does she need medical attention?
Yeah. And then Don Jeffries is like, oh, thank God you guys are here, like the police. And then they get her. It's like, oh, I see. Well, I don't know anything about this, so I'll just... You'll have to excuse me.
Clayton looks very satisfied on the way out, but he does become grim, as you say. He sort of just blew up his career. He had nothing. He has no way out. Amazing lack of dialogue as he hops in the cab. The cab driver says, what are we doing? He says, give me $50 worth. Just drive. Credits.
Yeah.
Wowie.
If you're the cab driver, you're just like, all right, man.
I guess do loops around this fucking block.
I guess I'll drive you to, like, the airport. I don't know. Like, what does that even mean? I'll drive. I'll do loops around Midtown because I need to be able to pick someone else up when you get out. Like, I'm not going to drive. To the Bronx or something.
Yeah. Tony asked Clooney what he was thinking about in this moment, and he said, I'm just running the movie back through my head. So really embodying the character, feeling like he was there.
Okay, that's kind of fun.
I was wondering, maybe he'll go back to the DA's office. Maybe that's what he'll wind up doing in Michael Clayton 2, Electric Clayton-aloo.
Yeah, it is a good question. What the hell is he going to do now? I mean, but something like that. He could do, He could become like a public defender or a defense attorney, So yeah, presumably something humbler, less mired in sleaze, I would imagine. At least he would like it to be that. Yeah, his skill set is not really valuable unless he's working in some horrible beast of a machine. So
yeah,
it's not clear where it goes. He'll be a consultant. He'll consult.
There you go. And the commentary ends with this very nice line that Tony said, where he said, "If it sounds like we had a good time making this movie, we did. Except having to share a room together."
Oh, well, that's great. Yeah, it's great. It would be hard to imagine this being a very grueling movie because there's not a lot other than the sunlight stuff, or the sunrise stuff, right? But I mean, in general,
70 locations as well. That's nothing to sneeze at.
Okay, that's a lot. Yeah, that's fair. But I mean, it's like I said, they hired a bunch of pros. There's nobody who's like a mercurial presence, I would imagine, and a bunch of people just doing their job.
That's exactly right. Like Michael Clayton himself.
That's right.
And now, Patrick, we've reached the part of the episode where we sum up why this isn't just a good horror movie, but is in fact the best horror movie ever made. And I'm going to let you start. Okay.
Well, I think it's a portrayal of, it's the real world, and this came out in 2007, one of those big law firms, or it's about a fake one, obviously, but I mean, and since then it's only been borne out more that, a lot of these big firms you start to find out what they're actually involved in, what the profession, or what that kind of representation actually entails. And it's been an interesting thing to see as these things have become more and more in the spotlight, I guess. Banality of evil is kind of a cliche thing, but that's what this is about, and that's why it's, everybody in this movie gets chewed up by, sort of forces beyond their control, but not beyond their control. Like it was set in motion at some point, and they went along with it for a while, and that's how things end up. So yeah, I don't know. That's not very articulate, but I think you get my point.
No, I totally agree. To me, this is the best horror movie ever made because it speaks to an actual human experience. With supernatural movies, with slasher movies, you have the catharsis, you walk out going, that will never happen. I can leave this movie behind and be fine. But watching this movie, it is affecting in a real and tangible way because you look around, you can see yourself reflected in it in a more easy capacity. I have talked before about, for several years, I worked at an ad agency. I felt gross. It was not a good time. And, they ply you with, oh, there's liquor in the fucking fridge and you can, sit in the beanbag chair and all these things that they use to convince you that it is a good place to be. Meanwhile, you are selling your soul to sell stuff that people don't need. And, it just really drags you down, or at least it dragged me down is what I'll say. It dragged me down a lot. And, Take Shelter, a movie we also covered recently, kind of gestures at this, but it's more explicit, Michael Clayton is, about the way that our expenses, our basic needs are extorted by work to make us do distasteful stuff. They will do whatever it takes. Marty says, when did you get so delicate? Like, they are so worn down by the fact that they are being told to do these unethical things that it's not even a surprise to him anymore. Oh, yeah, we're phone tapping people. Where did we get this briefcase from with his documents? Who cares? All these things, all these little concessions that you make in order to keep food on the table and keep a roof over your house, it's an awful, awful one-sided relationship a lot of times. And, your work does not care about you the same way you care about keeping your job. And I just think that Michael is so emblematic of this sort of being run through your paces, fed through the grinder, and then spat out the other side with no care about what happened to you in that process. There's also the awful horror of the look at what businesses do. They're willing to poison you to save a buck. They didn't only actively kill Arthur, they killed people with their products. That's the whole point of the lawsuit. They actively put out toxic shit to save their bottom line and just hoped people wouldn't notice, put the pieces together, or that it would be worthwhile for the company to just accept these losses. That is so evil. That is so cruel and malicious and the truest horror possible, I think. And that's why this is the best horror movie ever made.
Said it better than I could. That's for sure.
Patrick, I want to thank you so much for coming on the show, man. This was so much fun. Please tell the people where they can listen to your show, find you on social media, all that stuff.
Yeah, sure. As you said before, I'm the co-host of What a Time to Be Alive. It's me, Kath Barbadora, Eli Uden. It's the only podcast that counts down the things each week that make you say the thing that's the title of the podcast. It's like a, fun news countdown. Nothing too serious. We try to keep away from the big stuff and just talk about animals that escaped and things like that. So that's on all the podcast stuff. It is not the Drake and Future album. So keep an eye out for that. If you hear music, that's not what we're doing. But no, it's that's on all the podcast places. I'm Patty Mo on all the stuff, I think, basically. So yeah, pattymo.com on Blue Sky, if that's something that people, I don't know what we're supposed to promote anymore, because I don't know what anybody's using. It changes every week, so we'll see. But yeah, you find me on all the stuff at that. That's an easy place to start.
Definitely encourage you all to do that. As far as my plugs, you can find me on Blue Sky at Little Horror PHL if you're there. We also have a bunch of really great episodes in the back catalog if you're listening to this for the first time. We recently covered Under the Silver Lake with Hayes Davenport from Hollywood Handbook. We have a couple of great episodes with Eric from Soundtracker. Broti Gupta was on recently, who is a writer for The Simpsons. She's really, really funny. We talked about Rocky Horror Picture Show recently. So a lot of great stuff in the back catalog. And I also want to say, hey, the listener drive is going well. I am in the effort to get to 100,000 downloads by the end of the year. I am pushing this with a live stream happening Friday, December 22nd. It started with an 8-hour commitment. I'm aiming for 24 hours, and every hour equals 1,000 listeners. So it's 13 hours, and then I'm just going to, if we hit that mark, bump it up to the full 24. So we're at 11 hours right now. It's been 3,000 of the 13,000 so far, which is going really well. Every hour is going to be more special goodness, trivia, live commentaries, giveaways, lots of special guests and stuff. Going to be a really fun time. So tell people about the show. Tune in for that December 22nd and keep an eye out for more information about that. All right, I think that's it. Rate and review, I guess, if you're enjoying the show. Don't do that if you're not enjoying the show. Thanks, everyone. Bye.